I think by now we all know the benefits about physical activity and brain performance. You can see here, based on this video with Andrew Huberman, is that it provides a neurochemical boost. So it triggers the release of neurochemicals like dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, which are associated with increased alertness, focus, and motivation. All the things that we want and need as entrepreneurs. However, if you're like most entrepreneurs, especially those getting started, we spend 8, 10, 12 hours a day behind a computer, sitting at a desk, and trying to be as productive as we can. I'm definitely including myself in this at times. And there is a time and place where we need to be behind the desk for long periods of time. But what if we could be outside, moving our body, getting great ideas, but at the same time being just as productive as we want to be? That's what I'm showing you today with this AI automation system. So this system here is triggered by Telegram, and it goes through a whole bunch of AI automations and then is output into this dashboard here created inside of Airtable. So essentially we turn our voice notes into content immediately while we're on the fly. So you can be outside doing some exercise, maybe you could be with family, maybe you can be with friends having lunch, and you have that idea, that spark. Instead of just recording it in your phone and maybe forgetting about it and never coming back to it, we can use this system here to automate the immediate content creation components of that idea. But you could use this system in a whole host of other ways as well. It doesn't have to go into Airtable. It could go into ClickUp or Asana or any other tool. You could just send yourself an email via a voice note with all of the pieces of content, whatever you wanted to do. But you can also build other triggers off this automation to maybe email a team member or to assign a task to somebody else inside of ClickUp. There are so many variations that I could dive into, but today we're keeping it simple. So let's dive into how this is built. This is episode 9 of the 9-part series on n8n and Airtable AI systems, where I dive deep into how to build AI automation systems that are scalable, that impress your team, that impress your clients, that are easy to train people on, and that actually get adopted and used. So if you haven't watched any of the previous versions, then I highly encourage you to go back to number 1 and watch through all of the episodes, as each of them are somewhat the same, but each of them have tiny little hacks inside of how you actually build proper systems that impress your team and clients so you can build a much more effective business and automate workflows effectively. So I'd highly encourage you to go back and watch them now. There'll be a link in the first comment and description. So if you don't know me yet, my name is Mitch and I run makebigmoves.ai. This is an AI automation agency where we work with businesses doing anywhere from $30,000 a month right up to $1 million a month. And the big thing that we always talk about is we build systems. So if you look at everything we've built, we build these systems, which is, yes, there's n8n automations or make.com automations behind the scenes, but we build systems where the only place that our clients and ourselves actually work from are interfaces like this. Now you can build interfaces inside of Airtable, you can build them inside of Softer, you can vibe code them. Doesn't really matter, but the whole point is we're using interfaces so that it's easier to train our clients, it's easy for the clients to train their teams, and most importantly, so that these systems get adopted. Because I imagine there's been tons of times where you build these really fancy automations and nobody ever really uses them. Or if they become a little bit outdated because you need to change some AI models or you need to build some different components, nobody ever really does that. They just kind of start collecting digital dust. So that's really what we teach about here at bigmoves.ai. We review all of the AI tools and AI automation templates, and we teach how to implement AI effectively. And we have more than 700 people who have purchased our AI systems over the last few years. And we're just diving deeper now into building these really great systems for your business. So if you're interested in how can I build this for myself, or how can I understand this system for myself, and then build out some of these interfaces on top of a database, then let's dive into this workflow and go really deep on this so that you can be as effective as possible when it comes to building businesses, because businesses change, yet most people have not changed. What we used to do 5, 10 years ago was anytime we needed to build a new strategy into our business, anytime we were scaling up, when we were generating more revenue, when we're bringing on more clients, more customers, more customer support, it was always, we'll do it as much as we can ourselves as the business owner, as the CEO. And then when I need to, I'm going to hire some help and get someone in and train them up. Now, you still can do that, absolutely. But you can also now build systems that replicate the work that any of your team members could be doing. And basically at this point, we're getting to a point where it's not just replacing junior members, but it's placing like really mid-tier members of your team as well. but you have to understand how to build systems. AI automations can be the worst thing for your business if you don't understand systems. And what I mean by systems is it has to be scalable. It has to have some type of interface in order for your team to use it. Otherwise, they're never going to use it. And I can tell you that from experience. And it has to be really quite intuitive and easy for people to use. People want things that are easy to use. Otherwise, they're not going to use them at all. And they're just going to go back to their old ways, their old patterns. And that's going to essentially cost you a lot more money because you're not going to be as productive. So let's dive into this system now. And before I actually talk through this, let's do a demo. So I'm just going to open up a Telegram here. And I've already created a few as we were building, but let me just hit record on a voice message. So I want to create some content about the top 5 benefits of playing paddle. And I want to add in a few studies. So if you look for some studies, make sure they are proven, make sure they are sourced. So I know who did the study and where it came from, so I can double check that. But also I want some physical benefits, and I also want the mental benefits of playing paddle. So I've just added that in. It went for 23 seconds. You can essentially do up to like an hour voice note if you want, and then create all of this. But if we look on this, on the executions now, we can see here that this is now running. So essentially it's going through this entire workflow. It's triggered via the Telegram app. The automation then transcribes the recording. It runs through the AI in order to create a title. So we can send it into here with a title with some sort of ID so we know how to identify it later. And then it runs through all of these different prompts here for podcast, YouTube, Instagram post, LinkedIn post, Facebook post, and TikTok script. Now, you can change all of these. We just put in a basic prompt here, but I would recommend that you change all of these as you're building. And now it's going to run for about 3.5 minutes and create all of those things for us. So while we wait, let's just run through this automation first, and then we'll come back to the database afterwards, because I think this is what sets apart what we do and how we build, is we build proper databases with proper structures that allows the workflow to just be a whole lot more intuitive and easier to use and easier to understand. So this is important, whether it's you building for your own business and your team, or if it's you building for a client business. So let's dive into this now. So number 1 is the Telegram trigger. So if we open this up, we've connected to our Telegram account, and the trigger is when we receive a message. So in order to do this, I have a few instructions which will be inside of our community. But for now, I've just got it here inside of ClickUp. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to create a Telegram bot. So this is created with BotFather. So in order to do this, we just go to BotFather inside of Telegram, and then we go /new bot. And we give your bot a name. So it can be literally anything, but the username will end in _bot. Then we save that bot token provided by BotFather, and that's what we add into n8n. So if we come back into our automation here, when we are doing the credentials, we just add in the access token given to us by BotFather inside of here, and then use this base URL. From there, anytime we send a message into that bot, this automation or this node here will trigger, and it will pull that message into the system. So next we then want to use the Telegram get a file. So this then retrieves the file, so the voice file, and then we want to download it. So we just check this download checkbox here. Then now that we have the file, we can transcribe that. So we're simply just using an OpenAI audio resource. Operation is transcribe a recording, and then simply add in data into the input field after we've got the file here. So the automation will understand that the data is the data from the previous node, and it will pull that in and begin transcribing. Once we have the transcript, then we feed that into the rest of this system here. So what I like to do is in here, let's change this to create a title. So we want to create a title up front, and this comes back to understanding database structure and how we need to add the details back into the system itself. So we're creating the title, and then we're immediately creating a voice note record inside of Airtable. And the reason why we do that is because when we feed in all of the content pieces, we want to feed it back into an original record so it all sits underneath. So what do I mean by that? Let's have a look at the Airtable system now. So we essentially have 2 tables here. Number 1 is our voice notes brain dump. So we're recording our transcript and we're recording our content title that was generated by AI. So we're creating a record here first, and then we have an AI output field that is linked to our brain dump. So this AI output field generates all of the different pieces of content. So each of those pieces of content gets one record inside of this system. But you can see here, we actually link it back to the original record. So this is what we call a linked record inside of the database. So when you're building this out, you simply just go link to another record, and you can link to another record in another table. And then the benefit of doing that is when we open up our interfaces here, so we have our two different tabs for our Airtable interface. But if I click into this one that we just generated for the top 5 benefits of playing paddle, then now we have all of these records here in our AI output field that is linked just back to this original record here. So if I go to one of the previous ones I've created, you can see how this changes now. This one. So all of these are linked together. So I know that if I come into this AI output field, I know where they came from. If we didn't do this, we wouldn't know where these podcast scripts and YouTube scripts actually came from. We would be trying to match up some sort of ID from the previous, like we would probably try and create some sort of ID and then try and understand the ID and where that came from. But now it's so easy to follow. We simply just open up this record, and then we look at the different pieces of content. So let's open up this Facebook post. And now we can see the top 5 reasons for playing paddle is linked in these Facebook posts here. So I hope that makes sense so far, because this is one of the most important concepts to grasp as we're actually building automations and building out these systems that are highly effective and people adopt and people use. So we essentially create this voice record note inside of Airtable first. So it creates in the database. And then from there, we can then go and create everything else. So we simply just have a whole bunch of different AI nodes. So we're using OpenAI again. So if I open up this one creates the podcast outline. And we've got OpenRouter in here. Let me explain this in just a second. So let me just come into our executions and pull up this one that's succeeded, so we have a little bit of data to work with. So what's happened here is it's created the file, it's got the file, it's transcribed that file, it created a title, and then created the record inside of here, which we see right here. Now it goes up into create a podcast outline. So let's open this one up. When creating content, I actually prefer to use Claude. Now, we could integrate like Anthropic's API, but we actually choose to use OpenRouter. So let me just show you OpenRouter. So they are the unified interface for LLMs. Basically, I can find any LLM inside of here, inside of OpenRouter, and only have to have one account. So instead of having dozens of different developer accounts, I just use OpenRouter and we can choose any AI model we want. So you can see here, we have a credential with OpenRouter. And if I open this up, we can use the OpenAI node inside of n8n, but we just change the base URL. So if I just go to just this first one here and down the bottom and have a look at the Python code at the bottom, we can see that we have a base URL and we have our OpenRouter base URL. So we simply just change this inside of the OpenAI node. We change the base URL, and then we get to use OpenRouter via this node. So we can use the ID. So if I come back up and I search for Claude, let's just, I think it was 4.1, was it? So we can see that we have Anthropic Claude Opus 4.1 or 4. It doesn't matter. We could use 4.1 if we wanted to. We just simply add that ID into here, and now we're using Claude for this content piece. So this is just like another little thing that we do to build automations, to build systems when we are building these types of things. Now, I didn't do it in this one, but you do actually have systems where we have like an AI model database, and you can select and choose different AI models for different parts of the workflow. But not only that, is when you build an AI model table as well in the side of the system, in order to change or in order to add new AI models into that system as they come out every couple of months, then you simply just add it in via a form or an interface. It's so easy to do. You never even jump into n8n to make any changes. This is some of the key principles of building systems. And we do have a lot more videos on the channel with much bigger systems where we do that type of thing. So you can go check that out afterwards. Basically, we're using that AI model via OpenRouter, and then we're feeding in our transcript into here, and then we're writing our prompt for this podcast. The way we instruct pretty much all of our automations is we start with some context, an objective or an instruction, the output format that we're looking for, the structure and content guidelines that we're after, and then any additional instructions, or sometimes we'll call this rules. So that's a general layout that we'll use when building these automations and when we're prompting this type of system. Now, remember, you can change this in any way you like. And there are actually ways that we could build the prompt library into here as well. You can change the prompt from here, and we go deeper into that in some other workflows. So you can check those out on the channel. Another benefit of n8n over make.com, and make.com has changed recently, is we can actually output the format as JSON. Here, we're actually saying we want you to write the full podcast content, but then we want you to output a title for that content as well. Coming back to when we're building these interfaces, we want to have some way to identify what we've created. By creating a title, it creates a title for each piece of content just in a single prompt. We used to do this with 2 different prompts, and obviously then it would cost a lot more money, but now we can actually create JSON and different variables or different fields to then map back into Airtable. So what do I mean by that? So over here on the left, we're essentially feeding in the transcript. We don't feed in the ID. It's basically just a transcript that goes into here. But then if you look over on the right, we've got our content. So this is all of the content that AI would normally create. But then we have a second variable here called title. So if we come across now into our Airtable field and we open this up, we can see now that we can map this title into the name field. So coming back into our database structure, we've got a name field, we've got our AI output field, we've got our content channel, and we've got our brain dump field. So we can map in a name that is generated by the AI just from this second variable here. We then, our AI output, which is our content field, so we drag that across and map that in here. And then we can change the content channel in this dropdown. So it has all of the categories that we need for what it's generating. So this one's generating a podcast, so we select the podcast script. Then we want to link it back to our brain dump. So this is, again, coming back to this systems building component, right? So back here, we've created a record inside of Airtable, and it's given us this record ID here. So the record ID is simply just the ID of this record across here, this line across here. So we've got this record ID now, and if we come back into here and we go to our brain dump, we are using this record ID inside of an array. So this is how we add in an array with these 2 symbols on either side. And what that does is when it imports into the database, it will then select that record. So normally if we don't add it in, it will look like this, and then it won't be linked to our original record. So what it does is it selects this record and ties it all together. So that's how we come back into here and we have access to all of this inside of the interface. So again, that's the benefit of building these types of systems. This is systems building. This is systems design thinking, right? We want to have different tables. We want to make sure all the fields in those tables are related in the right ways. We only want to have a place where we update the information one time throughout the entire table. And we do that by thinking about the entire process as a system. So now that we have the podcast there, then we just have to repeat that for the rest of the workflow. So if I just come back in and we've repeated that for YouTube scripts, we've repeated that for all of the other pieces of content down here. So that's how we build this type of system. Now, the question is, how do you actually use this for your own business? Now, there are so many ways. So number one, you could have different Telegram triggers for different types of workflows. So maybe you want to build this content workflow out exactly as is. So you build a content trigger workflow, and that would trigger this workflow. Or you could actually build like an AI agent here in this component as well, and then instruct the AI agent to send all of the details into different workflows depending on what you add into the voice note system. So remember, like the way that we've built this one is just a simple way to build this system to give you some ideas of like where to start. But there are tons of different add-ons that you could add on top of this. Like the potential for something like this is absolutely limitless. Basically anything that you do by clicking a mouse and writing with your fingers on the keyboard can actually be transformed into a voice notes AI. And that makes it so crazy. Like, well, I actually had a friend years ago. I spent some time with him in Thailand, got to know him a little bit. He's from Poland, I believe. He had one arm. He had a traumatic accident when he was younger and he lost his arm. But he was like a super affiliate. He made millions and millions of dollars being an affiliate back in the day, doing some crazy, shady stuff. But he was essentially just there typing all of his ads and all of the landing pages he was building with one arm. For people like that who have a disability and have some limitations on what they can do, the potential now to just be working like 10, 20, 30 times faster is insane. The benefits for people like him, but there's so many other benefits for so many people as well. Like maybe you just want to be outside more, have your health put together. You want to be exercising. You want to stay fit. You want to keep your back good. I know I definitely struggle with back issues if I sit down for too long. These are the types of systems where AI becomes so effective, but nobody is thinking about it. So I hope this system is really a great reminder as to what is possible. Now, of course, if you are interested in the entire system, if you do want this n8n template, it is inside of our free resources. So you can just go to the landing page that is linked in the first comment there and download this for free, and you can set this up for yourself. But if you do also want to get the entire system, then once you download this for free, then we'll send you some instructions on how you can get access to this, not just this system, but so many other systems that we have in a bundle as well, which will be super effective for you. So I hope this video is valuable. And if you are interested in more systems like this, I go way deeper. I even have build videos, which go for a couple hours long, where you're basically just looking over my shoulder as I build out these types of systems and build out the interfaces on top of them as well. So if you want to dive further into that, make sure you watch this video next, and I'll see you there.